Here we go. Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. The sun has finally decided that it's going to start bobbing itself, showing itself up, and we can finally start having an actual walk down here. It's only a few minutes ago, it was literally just pitch black. So, this is the thing when you say you're going to have a show that starts at 8 o'clock on a Saturday morning. It's always easier to get up during the summer than it is the winter. That's for one thing. I don't know if you can hear the mud beneath my feet. Oh, Catholic, hello. Hello to you, Catholic. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Oh. There we go. Oh. Cathal, good morning to you. Like I say, it's a typical oh, there we go. Oh. Halfen, good morning to you. 27 Bike Brothers, good morning from Lubin in Poland. Good to see you as well. Good to see everyone else slowly filtering in. Today's it. Shane, good morning to you. Like I say, it's a absolutely cracking of an early morning. Incredibly muddy though. Incredibly muddy. Wait, I don't know if you can hear through the ground squelching beneath my feet, but the cows have been out in force and really churned up the ground up there. But yeah. Oh. Good morning, good morning, good morning again, one and all. Welcome as always to the always fantastic Good Morning Walk. Oh, Nicole De Smith. Hi there, good morning. Any ponies around? Well, if you check in the background, there is one. Pretty Bird, greetings to you. Loki's children, good morning to you as well. There's one. Loki's children, good morning from Northumberland. So yeah, we've got one pony today, although I think they might have been maybe sent away. Maybe. I think it's a bit too, maybe it's a bit muddy, a bit too wet for them at the moment. Oh. I think we've got we've also got a little bit of a visitor as well. So who are the top runners likely to place Johnson? Liz Truss, yes. If I were to pick any three top runners for replacing Johnson, definitely has to be Liz Truss, Rishi Sunak, Priti Patel. And like I say, we'll get into those reasons later. Oh, Joe, good morning from Dublin. Good morning to you. So, before we properly begin this morning's walk, how about Gove? Well, like I say, we'll get into that in a bit, but before we start, surely some of you have seen the picture. Some of you maybe caught last Wednesday's stream. I've only gone and done it. I am unfortunately a owner of a physical copy of Spartan Victory. Yes, I have the book. It is in my possession. I'm going to give it a good flick through this weekend. And next Wednesday, we will be going over Spartan Victory. So look forward to that next Wednesday. And you can blame Cathal OG and I can't remember who else donated now, I'm sorry. But yes, you can blame them for this. We can all suffer together. As I probably will be reading this as well. Oh. It was an accident, yeah. I just happened to accidentally hit the donate button. Oh. But yes, it's been a very interesting week for Johnson. Very interesting. And I think, as they say, the worm has finally turned. I think a lot of the, Conservative MPs are now, I think especially this Christmas, really weighing their options about how much longer, or if they're going to support Johnson beyond this Christmas. I keep on constantly telling you, you've really got to watch for any of the members, of the Northern Research Group. Because the Northern Research Group, if you don't know, just a quick background and info on these guys, they're obviously one of the new groupings of MPs, modelled very much in the shape of the ERG. Because as I've told you many times now, the Conservative Party has become many parties within the party. And this has sort of never happened before in the history of their of the party. So if these groups decide to go to war or really start to throw their influence around, we could see some very significant Tory civil wars going on. And not only just under Johnson, but potentially under the next Prime Minister as well. All these parties, all these groupings have made the Conservative Party, or should I say the Parliamentary Conservative Party, completely and utterly ungovernable. And you're going to see that in a couple of days, because there's again a big vote on the coronavirus restrictions, and it says a lot. It says a lot when the government has to rely on the opposition to get a bill through, especially when this current government has such a big majority. You can tell just how many people Johnson has well and truly annoyed that for them. And especially when it comes to the Northern Research Group. Why are they so crucial to this? First of all, two things you've got to know about them. And first thing, of course, you've got to know about how very much the Tories are perceived here in the North. They aren't liked much. They aren't liked much at all. Even after their victory in 2019, when many Northerners voted, indeed for the first time, for the Conservative Party. But when you talk to these people about why they voted Conservative, they felt they could trust Boris Johnson a lot more than Jeremy Corbyn could, for some strange reason, as Prime Minister, than Corbyn. So they basically, Boris made the Conservatives more palatable for these people to vote for. And as a result, especially in these red wall seats, again, very, very telling that they're still referring to them as red wall seats, even after all this time. Very, very telling that they are still obviously referring to them as red wall seats. But they got in because of Johnson, because of the promises that he made. They had to cast off, if you're running as a Tory up in the north, you really, really have to cast off the image of the Conservative Party. You can't mention Thatcher, you can't mention, anything about austerity, like really positive. And as a result, many of these northern MPs got in only because of Boris Johnson. So you'd think that this group of MPs would probably, I say that in the loosest sense of the terms, be the most ardent supporters of Boris Johnson. But they're not. They really are not. Because Johnson is, old traditional Tory through and through. Just so happens that he has a personality where, people like Mark Francois don't. Same for Jacob Rees-Mogg. So he's able, shall we say, to appeal to the plebs. That's why Johnson, again, the biggest mistake the Conservatives ever made was actually putting him in a position of power. Johnson is far more valuable to them as someone on the backbenches who can essentially wind up the crowd and get them going. Oh, you're about to be made very happy, as you can see over there. Lots of ponies and cows. So you see a Yorkshireman in Northern California sitting home with a bag of popcorn. You do right, my friend. You do right. So they have been desperately trying to give themselves a different image to the rest of the Conservative Party, because they do not want to be seen, even though they are Conservatives, they do not want to be seen as Conservatives. As bizarre as that sounds, think about any political party. Imagine if someone was like, a Labour MP and wanted to be, again, a member of the Labour Party, but didn't want to be seen as a member of Labour. Yeah, it's kind of weird. But for them to run in the north, that is the strategy that they must pursue. So they've had to pursue this strategy, and it worked very well for them. Not well enough, but when Johnson came in and convinced many of the people that he was somehow, again, going to be a better Prime Minister than Jeremy Corbyn, because, again, we'll be diving into soon as well, the 2019 election report, and there's a lot of interesting data in there when it comes down to it. Ta-da! I know why you're all here. So just a quick break. So remember, please do hit that like and share button while you're here. Hit the like button for the pony. Like I say, it gets more people in. And like I say, you can see, oh no, I know, those are ponies. The cows are over there. But we'll get to those later. So, you would think, of course, that they would probably be the most ardent supporters of Boris Johnson. But as I said, you couldn't be further from the truth. They are easily not only his biggest potential opponents probably in the upcoming months, but also the ones that were elected on his promises and have been the ones pushing hard for his promises. We saw in the HS2 debate very recently, it was very much led by the Northern Conservatives, or the Red Wall Tories, as we'll call them, who were so upset by this. They had been promised, of course, HS2 by Boris, which I've said before, very surprising. Boris is the type of person who loves a good infrastructure project. So it's very, very surprising that Johnson is out there and not following up with, with the HS2. Very, very surprising indeed. So the fact that they have been so outraged by this, the very fact that we've had all this sleaze scandal, which, again, they themselves have been the hardest Tories going hard on the second job sleaze scandal that's been going on very recently. They've been hitting hard on this. I mean, really hard. Like, outspoken. Like, for example, the Hartlepool MP, who only just got elected, in the recent by-election a couple of months ago, stood up and absolutely trashed Boris. Absolutely trashed Boris in the House of Commons recently. And yet, there she was, and he was, just literally just a couple of months ago, hand in hand, celebrating, oh, aren't we fantastic? Again, like I said, I've said many times before, do not think that these people, or that these, shall we say, Northern research group, is in favour of Boris. They are desperately trying to, shall we say, keep themselves at very much distance, arm's length distance, from the Tory party. They want to have more than one term in office. And they've said this right from the word go. We are so worried that unless Johnson keeps his promises, again, another interesting phenomenon happening very recently, you'll notice that all the Conservative MPs are now referring to him as Johnson, not Boris. Very interesting. You can very quickly tell that the joke has indeed probably run its course. And like I say, I think you've got a lot of Conservative MPs this year, or well, this Christmas, who are very, very much thinking that, shall we say, it's time to give him the old boot. And that will be very interesting, of course, when that time comes. Might Johnson give us all the best Christmas present and just go? Who knows? But of course, as you saw in Parliament this week, Johnson told us that this party number 10 never happened, but he was very, very interested to tell us that, of course, if there had been one, the rules would have been followed. Again, very strange. Don't you think so, sir? There you go. So, needless to say, I wouldn't be surprised. I would not be surprised if, shall we say, photos or videos appeared. Oh, tiny pony. Bigger pony. Smaller pony. But yeah, I would not be surprised if... Oh. We've got a potential star here. Hello. He's having a sniff at me wellies. So I would not be surprised if... What are you... Oh. Here you go. So I would not be surprised if, shall we say, photos or videos appeared of this party that didn't happen, of course, shall we say, appeared this weekend, or shall we say, just in time for Monday morning. Because you've got to ask the question now, has this truly burst the bubble? When even all the papers have now turned against Johnson, like well and truly turned against him. Except the Sun, who didn't run it because, as the Private Eye reported, they were also having their own, shall we say, quote, socially distanced party at their own offices during that lockdown as well. So if you're wondering why they were the only ones who didn't report on that story, very interesting. So Bakura's just said that apparently it's been confirmed by an investigation. Apparently. Like I say, the Good Law Project, of course, has threatened to sue the Met for not for refusing to investigate these if they don't investigate them. Again, very interesting, of course, to see what happens from there. But needless to say, I think that these guys, the Northern Research Group, you need to keep an eye on them. Because if any of them are, if any of them, shall we say, are going to, shall we say, be the first to get the knife in, it will be the Northern Research Group. Which brings us round to, who do you replace Johnson with? And again, this feeds back into the Northern Research Group. Because you've got, of course, at the moment, very much the party, the Conservative Parliamentary Party, I'd like to make the distinction of, is very much controlled by, currently, the right-wing libertarians of the party. So, this, in itself, in election, in a leadership election for the Tory party, could be very interesting. Because, once again, the Northern Research Group aren't going to want someone who is, typical Tory. So who would the Northern Research Group back? Let's have a brief look at all this, shall we? So, first up, I say, and I think, if you were going to put money on who replaces him, these would probably be the three people I would advocate backing. First of all, Liz Truss. it is absolutely no secret at the moment among, again, the parliamentary base, not only the parliamentary base, but the member base of the Conservative Party, she is the most popular member of parliament by a country mile. She is incredibly popular. But of course, like Johnson, what has she actually done? Well, again, apparently she's, quote unquote, signed trade deals. Not really. She hasn't signed a single trade deal. She signed rollover deals. Again, not even half as good as the deals we had when we were in the EU. But there you go. And like I say, these rollover deals are meant to be there until we can agree a deal. But of course, there's always the small little caveat, of course, that the... there we go, show you the river. Very nice down here. Comes along, of course, with the small little caveat that you've just had the Australian and New Zealand deal could be very, very bad for farmers. And not to mention, potentially, what might be in the CPTPP, the Comprehensive Trans-Pacific Partnership Deal. Although I know it's got more words in there, but I just call it the Trans-Pacific Partnership Deal. I think that's its old name, but still the same thing, just without America. So that could also have some serious consequences, because we've never had in this country for quite some time what the political consequences might entail for the Tories, especially when they heavily advocate for rural communities, of a trade deal that they've signed, which once again they say is meant to be fantastic and amazing, and yet it completely shafts the people who are their most ardent core supporters. It could be very, very interesting politically. And of course, that will be on Liz Truss. Remember, she was the international trade minister at the time when those deals were signed. That could be very much something that if she does, shall we say, ascend to be PM, that could definitely come back and haunt her and hurt her politically. So would the Northern Research Group support her? Potentially, I think they could. However, those trade deals do have a potential of coming back to haunt her. Might that affect the Northern Research Group's support of her? Definitely. Absolutely. But as we said before, she is incredibly popular among the Conservative Party membership base. So, and if you think that very recent times that the most recent parliamentary votes for the the leader of the party have been very much based on popularity levels. So she is a very good bet on, if you're going to put a bet on her. Next, of course, is Rishi Sunak. Sunak, who very much gained a lot of positive press, obviously due to the pandemic, and of course he gave out the... Oh, hang on. He, of course, gave out the coronavirus grants, set up the furlough, which helped out a lot of small businesses throughout the UK. So he's got a lot of popularity from that. But, of course, the big question comes, and of course, the big questions next year are going to be, we have these problems in this country. We need to solve them. And to solve those problems, they need to spend money. We've just seen Rishi Sunak very quietly cut the tax for, what was it now? He's cut the tax for something very quietly, but I can't remember what it is. Damn. But anyway, he's very quietly cut the tax for this. Again, probably because, shall we say, the leaders group asked him to. So he will definitely find himself in a position. Oh. Ta-da. More ponies for you. Oh, morning.
Morning.
So in the next few weeks, if those Northern Research Group MPs are going to back Rishi Sunak, then Rishi Sunak is going to have to splash some cash on them. And Rishi Sunak hasn't splashed the cash on them. But he could, shall we say, if he does, shall we say, intends to win their favour and become sort of their champion. And of course, this is obviously a bit of a dark horse in the race, because this is where two groups could support them, because Rishi Sunak, unlike Liz Truss, could gain support not only from hang on. There we go. Way to cross that puddle. This could bring not only the Northern Research Group together, but the Libertarians together, potentially, in an alliance to get Sunak elected as Prime Minister, which Truss currently, from what I can see, she does not have. Try as she might, of course, with those free trade deals or not. Of course, her work as Foreign Secretary hasn't, shall we been gaining as much attention for her. Even though she's at the G7, I think, this weekend. So you're probably going to see a bit of her this weekend. Unless they ally together, that might be the only way Sunak can win against Liz Truss. So it comes into something very interesting about that. And also, just as Nicole Smith has said, Sunak's got the personality of a toothbrush. Indeed. Because as we said at the beginning, the Northern Research Group don't want to be seen as being the old traditional Tory. And Sunak does have very much that old traditional Tory vibe about him. So, again, something to bear in mind when these leadership fights happen. Mighty, shall we say, suddenly changes spots and think about, shall we say, spending cash on these Northern Red Wall seats to essentially gain their support. It's potentially possible. Like I say, Sunak's quite complicated because, again, of his very traditional Tory background, mixed with his, recently not spending the cash and cutting it away from the northern seats. They're quite upset. So unless he can reverse that, or unless he wants to reverse that, or give them more cash in some other way, the Northern MPs aren't going to support him. So this brings us, of course, on to Patel. like I say, the three most ones who I think have the potential to become Prime Minister for the Conservatives, also we say lead the Conservative Party, are those three. So why Priti Patel? She has been on manoeuvres, just like Liz Truss has also been on manoeuvres very much this week as well. She's been out there since the very beginning. She styles herself, of course, as Margaret Thatcher. And of course, Home Office and the Treasurer are the two most likely positions of where former Prime Ministers have served. And of course, Patel styles herself. Show you some ponies here. Patel styles herself very, very much after Thatcher. So are the Northern Research Group going to support her? The answer is no. If that continues, or she alludes to that as that's what she's going to do, no. Northern Research Group's not going to support her. They will put their weight behind someone else entirely. Of course, you might be thinking, why am I making such a fuss about Northern Research Group? Like I say, currently in the Parliamentary Party, they are quite a potentially powerful group. They haven't really thrown their weight around before. So it'd be very, very interesting to start to see when they start to throw their weight around and start to demonstrate their power in the party. Even if, let's say, Sunak or Patel get elected, or it's not the person that they're backing, they could cause the next PM some serious trouble. Hence why I said at the very beginning, the party has become ungovernable. So, needless to say, the next leadership race could be very, very interesting. But one of the things that will be making a lot of Conservatives very nervous in the coming weeks, of course, is the new by-election of Owen Paterson's seat. Because yes, we've got more by-elections coming up. And of course, again, this is, what is meant to be a very, very safe Tory seat. Whereas we saw in the last by-election that just happened, the Tories just narrowly managed to hang on by the skin of the teeth. Oh, can't get through here. Oh. We're going to have to go around. Or we can climb the fence. Well, we'll go around. But never mind. Never mind. So, they're going to be watching this with enthusiasm. Because as you saw the report we went over again just this week, lots of Conservative voters, not only in this upcoming by-election, but the last one, were very, very much demoralised by Boris Johnson. They didn't get out to go and vote for him. And as a result, what would normally be a very safe return of about a very significant majority got slashed to about 4,000, which made them very, very jumpy. And one of the things about this new seat, especially Owen Paterson's seat, is that the Lib Dems are going hard on this seat. They are trying to replicate what they did in Chesham and Amersham. And obviously, if Chesham and Amersham hadn't happened, like many of us were quite surprised when they won it, I would say not going to happen. But because they did it in Chesham and Amersham, there might be a very, very good chance they might very well win Owen Paterson's seat. Especially with all the party stuff going on, and again, the sleaze scandal continuing on. It is not a good time to be Boris Johnson at this moment, because even like if the Lib Dems win, it will cause a seismic shift. Like the Tory party will go into serious panic mode. They've lost what should have been 2 very easily keepable seats, and safe seats, more for that for them, the Lib Dems. What could happen at a general election? Not only that, we saw again at that last by-election, the Labour Party had a 10% swing towards them. And as we've said before, what happens if you apply that 10% swing into a lot of the marginal seats? Well, all of a sudden, looks like Keir Starmer could be potentially been winning those marginal seats. So it's got a lot, I mean a lot, of Tories worried, watching this race with very, very interested faces. Because you've also got the option, what if the Tories win? Even if the Tories win, this could be still very much a Pyrrhic victory for them. Because if they get turned with a very small majority on a seat that they should be able to win like easily, then this will also, there we go, cause a lot of problems for Boris Johnson as well. Because they want this seat, again, a traditional safe seat, should be won easily. Not, they weren't very happy, again, at the just gone by-election in Bexley and Sidcup, Old Sidcup, shall we say, where, again, they should have won easily. But they would have the most narrowest of victories. Got a lot of them very worried, especially that 10% Labour swing, which made them even more worried. So there's a lot going on. There is a lot going on in the next literally in the next couple of weeks, even by the end of this month. And when might Boris go? Potentially it would be in the new year, of course. But of course, this factors into what we've talked about before, about there being an early election. You know, we're looking at a general election, either 2023 or 2024. That's why Keir Starmer also had a cabinet reshuffle as well. They're talking about a victory, well, not a victory, but a how he is, you know, managed to potentially, if he has an early election, trying to up their chances as much as possible. Hence, very much the appeal to creating a very much a centrist Labour Party, which, well, if anything, is a bit disappointment. But put it this way, not all the Labour MPs are centrists. As I've said before, you've got to get involved in politics. You've got to elect more progressive and more lefty MPs in your seats. Not only that, as I keep on telling you, go read the book, Paint Your Town Red, based on the Preston model, of which has been very popular in the obviously in Preston, where the model was first rolled out, bringing a lot of, shall we say, socialist thinking to a local level. Indeed, Preston is not only now the most wealthiest council, it has the lowest numbers of unemployment, the highest number of what do they call them now, cooperatives in the country as well, meaning shared ownership of business. And you've seen these models slowly start to be adopted, not fully, but slowly rolled out by more councils. So even though you can say we haven't had, shall we say, Jeremy Corbyn, at very much your local level, if you've been paying attention, you could have some very few socialist councillors who are pushing through some very good reforms, some very good ideas indeed. Like I say, go read Paint Your Town Red. Go. Oh. It's very good. So all this could be very, very interesting for Boris Johnson this Christmas, especially due to the fact that we are also going to have Christmas shortages with a lot of the items that are normally seen around this Christmas. That could have a big impact as well on Boris Johnson's popularity. And I think if his popularity does drop, which we are seeing, by the way, his popularity and, of course, the positive impact of the Tory party are very much tied together at the moment. Oh, there we are. So if that goes, then the Tories are going to be very, very much worried about what they do. So we've got some very, very interesting things happening in the coming weeks. And of course, this has been said before. Is this really and finally the end of Boris Johnson? Like I say, I'm aware I've said this before on previous Good Morning Walks, but I'll tell you what, it feels like it. You know, something feels really different about this. I think that all this, the mishandling of the coronavirus, the sleaze scandal, there's the second jobs, or corruption scandals, we should probably be calling it, I suppose. And of course, now the Christmas party. All these, shall we say, have just snowballed into each other. And that's not the only thing either. We've had, obviously, the COVID contracts. Next spring, the COVID inquiry will start, which will, again, in itself, probably start to produce oh so much just how awful the government really did act during 2020. The checks for Brexit are meant to start again in January. But as I've said before, we've been here before and they've just kicked them down the road again a couple of months because, again, they weren't ready. Because, shockingly enough, Sunak hasn't spent the money to improve the instruction, the infrastructure, and hire more people. You know, again, a bizarre point of obviously contention there. You've obviously got the migrant, I say the migrant crisis, or the new migrant crisis. Again, looks like leaving the EU, and especially leaving the Dublin Charter, has actually made it easier for them to cross the channel. And again, that's why you've seen Johnson very, very upset with the French over the past couple of days, because he's trying to paint it, of course, as their fault for all this, crossing and etc., when in reality it has been Priti Patel who has not set up safe routes, not helped these people, and not even put the correct amount of effort into, processing claims. There just aren't enough people there to process the claims. We saw that very recently in the whistleblower inquiry in the Foreign Office, where she came out and basically said, yeah, more effort had been put by Number 10 into securing an animal transport than actually helping refugees out in Afghanistan. Speaks volumes about the priorities of our government. But needless to say, all this, coupled together, it doesn't look good. And of course, many of the Conservatives, not just the Red Wall MPs, are thinking, do we stay in power if Boris is at the next general election? That is the calculation a lot of those MPs are making this weekend. And like I said before, it speaks volumes that you have a government with such an overwhelming majority is having to rely on the opposition to pass its own bill. Again, speaks volumes very much. And of course you had I think it was Radio Live or something like that, where you had one of the Northern Red Wall MPs basically refused to answer whether he actually had confidence in Johnson still. Like I say, very, very bad times. Not only that, all the newspapers have well and truly put their boot into him this week as well. So that is very, very interesting for that, I can tell you that now. So Johnson's, I think, support base is very, very rapidly dwindling. I think without that support base, there's no way that he can stay. Absolutely no way he can stay, or especially stay in a, should we say, long enough to get to the next election. And even then, let's say they, should we say, have a change of pace, have a new fresh-faced Liz Truss as PM, then things could be just as bad for them. Because all that chaos was still under their watch, still under, again, a party who has an overwhelming majority. It still doesn't look good for them at an upcoming election. As I've said before, I think that I think we're going to start to see, more coalition governments. And as I've said before, don't trust the Lib Dems, by the way, because they are far, far more in common, of course, with the Conservatives than they ever really do with the Labour Party. So if any coalition happens again, I'm fully banking on the fact that the Lib Dems are far more likely to get into bed to keep the Conservatives in power than they are to put Labour in. But you'd think after, of course, the last coalition government that were in with them, they might have learnt their lesson. No, apparently not. Apparently not. So be aware, by the way, of when people say, let's have another, coalition government. Let's vote tactically. Remember this very fact that those people are far more likely to keep the Tories in power than they are to put Labour in. Again, it's very, very disappointing, to be honest. But we'll see. Like I say, of course, that's the next general election. But of course, who knows what will happen at that? And who knows when it will be. Like I say, this time next year, who knows? Maybe the Tories have got rid of Boris. And like I say, old Liz Truss is working her PR magic, making everyone think that she's a fantastic Prime Minister, just like everyone thought she was a fantastic, International Trade Secretary and Foreign Secretary for doing all these, wonderful tweets. Look at what I'm doing. By the way, that's part of the popularity, by the way. In fact, we might have to do that one day. Do like a live stream where we go through like her Twitter feed. Very, very interesting indeed. Yeah, that's the thing about our system. Because we're first past the post, not a proportional representation. Even in a coalition government, it's still winner takes all. Hence why we saw time and time again, Nick Clegg, again at the time the leader of the Lib Dems who went into coalition with Conservatives, was treated awfully. He was treated terribly. He'd come into a room thinking he was coming in for, a cabinet meeting. Turns out the cabinet meeting had started like an hour ahead of him. Not only that, of course, at the next election, David Cameron's campaign was pretty much, we could have only done better if it weren't for those, Liberal Democrats in our government. Oh, if only we weren't in coalition, we could have done so much better. And of course, look how well that turned out. And of course, he promised a EU referendum, which again, I think probably secured him the victory, in that election. But of course, then he actually had to deliver on it, something that he didn't want to do. And of course, we know where that all happened, and that led to now. And of course, on Sunday, by the way, there is an absolute corker of a video, because it comes from a guy, an author, who used to write for Brexit Central. For those of you who don't know what Brexit Central is, Brexit Central was at one point like the blog for the Brexiteers, dating back from like mid 2015 right up until February of this year. They haven't published, surprise, surprise, a single article tweet in February of this year praising the fact that we are now out of the European Union. Oh, there we go. So there's a good wash. So it speaks volumes that they've been this silent about a topic that they used to write so passionately about. And of course, it's an absolute copium article. It is just full of copium, and it's unbelievable. But we'll get to that on Sunday. It's oh my. You know, I think I've said this before. If this is what the Brexiteers were like when they won, could you imagine what they would be like if they lost? It's yeah, unbelievable. Unbelievable on that. Very unbelievable on that front, but that's where we were. And like I say, I know I've done the video. Like I say, it's coming out on Sunday, so watch out for it. It's going to be, put it this way, those of you of a nervous disposition or allergic to copium might not be the video worth watching for you. You might find yourself have a copium attack. But we're about the hopium on this channel, though, not the copium. So the hope is, of course, the next general election. We're really going to have to watch, of course, the events of the next coming weeks. The fact that the Tories are obviously going to go into open rebellion, I think, against Johnson. They're going to be very, very unhappy with him. And the fact that I think now he's probably on borrowed time. And I think it's just a matter of not if, but when, as they say. And of course, I think the by-election might give him more of a boot. Morning. Of course, if, like I say, if they lose, well, they are not going to be, he's not going to be, shall we say, a very happy Christmas in number 10. I think very much Johnson will be weighing up his options. So I think he thought being the MP would be a bit of a lark, be a bit of a fun. You know, like when he was Mayor of London. The difference is, when he was Mayor of London, he actually had a competent team around him. So he could do all the fun things and mess about and, you know, hide away when the bad stuff happened. The problem is when you're the PM, you are now at the top of the poll. There is nowhere for you to hide when you do something wrong or when your cabinet does something wrong as well, because as Boris Johnson said, the buck's meant to stop with him. And yet, he is the one keeping many of these people, of course, in the cabinet positions. And I think any next, should we say, whoever becomes the PM, the next leader of the Conservative Party, I think they're going to clear house. I think they are absolutely going to clear house. They ain't keeping any of them in at all. You know, it'll be out with the old, in with the new. they will want to clear it as much as possible. Bakura, surely if there is a new Tory leader, the opposition will try to force an early general election. They won't be successful in doing that. Like I say, with, again, how our parliament works, you will need a substantial majority. Not only that, but any new leader that comes in is still going to have to sort out the mess that Johnson created. And it is going to take time for them to do that. So they would be very, very foolish indeed to go ahead and call an early general election. Especially when the Tories have still got so much chaos still that they have caused with their incredibly large majority in this. So, say it doesn't look too good for them, even if they do call an early general election. Whoever comes up to the bat next is going to have to solve the problems of Boris Johnson, and frankly, they're going to need all the time they have to have it. So, if, shall we say, there is a change, it will not be an early election. The opposition will not be able to call one, because the Tories themselves are not going to, shall we say, vote for an early Christmas. They are not going to do it. Like I say, especially with their large majority, they don't want to risk. They do not at all want to risk it. They don't want to pull a Theresa May and find out that they come back with a new leader with a very much reduced majority, maybe even having to be propped up again, maybe by the DUP again, which would be very interesting for her if Liz Truss has to try and solve that problem like Theresa May did. Or even if they, shall we say, get into bed with the Lib Dems again, still going to be a difficult time for them to do that. And like I say, since they have such a large majority, you've seen a lot of the libertarians pushing very, very recently, as we get into that article on Sunday, very much bemoans the fact that Singapore on the Thames has not happened. Basically, the Brexiteers now coming out and saying, yes, that's our aim. We want Singapore on the Thames. We want a low tax, low regulation UK. Something which, again, they said at the referendum, that is not what we want. Of course, just like they didn't want to leave the single market and customs union. Again, like I say, at the referendum, they ran a widest campaign as much as possible to try and catch as many people as they could in a potential chance to try and win. And of course, the other thing it was a referendum against David Cameron. And a lot of people voted not for Brexit, but they just wanted to give David Cameron a black eye and never thought that Brexit would get through. Could stretching the fight as much as possible benefit Labour? Yes. Because you can then show that they've had Boris Johnson, they've brought in this new leader, and still they can't govern the country. They're, ruining the economy. Brexit hasn't worked as well as they wanted. Again, we'll get back into that article in a couple of weeks. All is not going well for the UK. The economists are not predicting a very good 2022 for the UK. Things are not looking well, and the only way out of this crisis, of course, is to actually start spending some serious money. And of course, as we've seen very recently from the last budget, they would rather cut and not spend the money than actually spend the money, even though we are in an absolutely fantastic position to actually seriously invest in this country. Of course, that's think a topic for another time. And of course, as always, thank you very much. Hang on. I know you like your ponies. There we go. Thank you very much for joining us on the Good Morning Walk. Judas Cantwell, you've joined us right at the end. But as always, thank you very much for joining us on the Good Morning Walk. Like I say, I've got some videos coming out this weekend, which are quite fun. So watch out for them, especially that one on the Brexiteer copium. Oh boy, oh boy, is that fun. But of course, probably another exciting week next week. So do come back and join us next Saturday morning for another Good Morning Walk. Of course, I will have videos probably about what's happening next week come out as well. So watch out for those. Please do remember to hit that like, share and subscribe button on your way out. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and a one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, well, buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much for everyone who's joined us today on the Good Morning Walk. It's been fantastic as always. And like we always say, have a fantastic weekend. And obviously, if you can't be safe, be sensible. Enjoy your weekend. Please do follow the rules and regulations, even though, you know, looks like Johnson & Co. didn't, but please do follow them. They are very, very important to help us, shall we say, return to some normalcy at least. So please do go follow those rules when you are out there this weekend, if you are out there. If you aren't, like I say, have a fantastic weekend. There's a new Tiger King documentary, so if you want to, so we say, wrap yourself up warm this weekend, go watch that on Netflix, I think it is. I think there's something else released as well. I'm probably rewatching Daredevil recently after it's been confirmed that the guy who was Daredevil in the Netflix series has been confirmed now in the MCU. So I'm rewatching Daredevil at the moment. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. It's been an absolutely cracking morning as always. And of course, well, you know, please do remember to hit that like, share and subscribe button on your way out. And of course, we'll see you all next weekend for another Good Morning Walk.